Your sales results aren't determined by your skills alone. They're determined by your self-image. And if you think it's all about the words you say or you being able to control or manipulate what other people are going to say or do in the sales process, you're missing the truth. People don't buy because you said the right thing. They buy because they felt something in you. And that is certainty, it's conviction, it's alignment. And that doesn't come from some technique or some strategy. It comes from who you believe yourself to be, from your self-identity. You close as big as you believe. That's right. Your close rate is directly tied to your level of self-belief. And if you keep showing up with tactics of a closer, but the mindset of a struggler, you're going to find that your results will keep betraying you. Prospects won't say no because of price. That's not why they're saying no. They'll say no because something in you made them feel uncertain. Something just didn't add up. And that ends today, because once you rewire your own self-belief at the identity level of who you believe yourself to be, your entire sales game changes, and it changes in a very big way. See, in this book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill found that there were 13 different principles to success and achievement, but 10 of these tied directly to sales. And the number one driver of your own personal self-belief starts in your desire. See, nothing changes in your sales results until something shifts inside of you. And that shift is when you go from wanting and wishing to an all-consuming obsession. See, in the book Think and Grow Rich, when he talks about desire, he says that everybody wants and wishes. The great Les Brown said that, everybody wants to be skinny, rich, and happy. It's just that nobody has the self-belief or the willingness to do the work to create it. See, it has to go beyond just wanting or wishing, or even just an ordinary desire. What you have to have is what Napoleon Hill called an all-consuming obsession. When you have weak desires, when you just kind of want it, when you're kind of aiming for a little bit more, when you're gaining for what you think you could create rather than what you really want, your prospect feels that even before you even make your offer. They can sense that you're not passionate, that you're not fighting for something. You ever sit back and watch some little kids play soccer or baseball or any kind of event? You can see a group of, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. Maybe they're, on the field playing soccer. One kid's looking at the clouds. The other kid's, looking down at the daisies on the ground. The other one's, looking at mom. One kid's playing in the dirt. But out of those 30 or 40 kids, you'll find one or two who's all in. Like their spirit is into it. They're into the game. They want to perform. They want to win the game. They want to control the ball. They want to score the point. They've entered into the spirit of it. They're driven by desire. See, when you fall in love with what it is that you want, like what it is that you really want, like why do you show up every day to face rejection? Why do you show up every single day to have conversations with complete strangers and build long-term relationships? Why are you doing that? Why are you committing to watching videos like this to get better? It's because you want something more than the average person. You've fallen in love with it. Again, everybody wants to be skinny, rich, and happy. Everybody wants to make more. Everybody wants to be a millionaire. Who doesn't want to be a millionaire? But see, for most people, the first sign of struggle, they give up. So they settle for less. The first sign of a challenge, the first sign that they have to make an investment and put some skin in the game. And now all of a sudden, they don't necessarily care whether it's $1 million. They'll settle for, 100,000 or 200,000. But, they said they want $1 million. But they haven't really fallen in love with that idea. And the reason they haven't fallen in love with that idea is because they really don't believe that they could ever achieve it. And because we have a weak belief in our ability to be the person who could create $1 million income, we give up on ourselves. And what we do is we start negotiating with the terms. We start negotiating with the price that we're willing to pay. And see, once that negotiation stops and you stop playing that game and you start focusing on what it is that you really want, and you start developing a level of self-belief that your desire isn't a want or wish. It's not even a burning desire. That's an all-consuming obsession. That as much as you're trying to reach the goal is pulling you forward. That's how much you want it. Then things begin to change for you. Then what I say is providence sets in. See, in sales, the person with the strongest desire will always lead the energy of the room. The person who has the strongest desire, the person who has the strongest passion, will always be the authority, the originator in the human interaction that takes place. And that person should be you. You should want the result. See, because if you've fallen in love with the idea of, let's say it is making $1 million, you know that the only way you can reach $1 million is by helping people solve their problems. As a salesperson, that's what we do. We spend our time qualifying people. And the way we qualify them, the very first qualification, even before the qualification of can they pay for it? Because most people can't pay to have their problem solved. They have to finance it. They have to put it on a credit card. They have to borrow it from mom or dad. Most people can't afford to have their problem solved, but they have the problem. You have to want to solve that problem even more than them. You have to qualify that they have the problem. That's the first qualification. Do they have the problem? Not do they have the money. And you have to have such a desire that you want to solve people's problems, because when you solve people's problems, you get financially rewarded. And so it goes that the person who's earning the biggest commission check is actually the person who's providing the greatest level of service. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That's why I love sales. That's why I love salespeople, because sales professionals who really get it, who really understand that their income is directly attached to the amount of value and service they bring, they fall in love with providing the service. They fall in love with serving other people. They fall in love with going out of their way and winning the business. There's actually a high that they get from that. And all of that is driven from their desire. You know, the word desire comes from the Latin word desire, D-E-S-I-R-E. It means to give birth to desire, to give birth to. And that's what we're doing in our sales process, is that we're giving birth to a dream that we have. The famous Zig Ziglar said that we can have anything we want as long as we help enough other people get what they want. You can have anything you want in your life as long as you're willing to help other people get what they want. Isn't that beautiful? So the very first step in creating this self-belief of a true winner, of $1 million producer, is desire. Step one, self-belief. You got to have a desire. You have to have something that you've fallen in love for. You have to have something that's worth fighting. You have to have something that's worth losing. That when you don't get the deal, it really hurts. You feel it because you are so attached to what you want. The second step in creating this level of self-belief is you've got to take action. See, belief does not precede action. Belief is born in the act of moving. We don't start with belief. We don't start with belief. We start with a desire. And that desire gets us moving. And in the moving, in the process of failing, we begin to build belief, even when you're not ready. That's the beautiful thing about it, is that you move, that you start even before you're ready. In other words, you're not waiting for you to have all the skill and talent and resource before you take that first step. No. True belief, true self-belief, when you really have this fortified belief of a winner, shows up in action. The person who's taking massive action, who's not waiting for other people, not waiting for conditions to change. Top performers, they don't wait to feel certainty before they take action. They act into certainty. They act into certainty, step by step by step. They understand it's a process. See, when we allow ourselves to be caught in procrastination or inaction, it's a breeding ground for doubt. And the longer you stay in this place of doubt and uncertainty in your mind, the longer you delay, the heavier your fear becomes, the stronger your fear becomes, the stronger your doubt becomes. So the most powerful thing you can do every single day in sales is to take that next aligned step, aligned with your purpose, asking yourself, if I act on this idea, will it move me in the direction of my dream? Even if I fail in the process, even if it's an imperfect step, even if it's a small step, you're not evaluating whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, whether it's good or bad, should I or shouldn't I? What you're asking yourself is, if I act, will it move me in the direction of my dream? And often, the action that's required is intuitive. In other words, it doesn't show up in your date book. It doesn't show up in your schedule. It doesn't show up when it's convenient. You're driving down the road and you get an idea on how you can handle an objection, how you can reach out to this person that has ghosted you for the last 6 weeks, and all of a sudden you get an idea. Call on them now. Swing by their office Friday afternoon. And you say, they've said no so many times. Hold it. You got the idea. Where did that idea come from? I'm going to suggest that idea came from your desire. That your desire was so strong that it tapped into ideas that you weren't even aware of. It tapped into ideas that don't show up in your schedule, that don't show up in your physical world, because when you're working at this level of desire, where you've fallen in love with what you want, you're tapping into what Napoleon Hill says is the third mind. You tap into ideas that you never even thought before. You tapped into ideas that don't make any logical sense. But, I've been calling on him. He's been saying no. Why should I go there? I got to go 30 minutes out of my way on a Friday at 3:00. Why should I go there? Because if you go there and the person's there and they take the meeting, are you ready? Could you close the deal? Could you advance the relationship? Yes. Well, then do it. Because if you've really fallen in love with what you want, if you really wanted this, you would leave no stone unturned. So, number one is you got to have a desire. You got to have an all-consuming obsession. I don't know what your dream is. I don't know what your goal is, but you better know what it is. And you've got to want it so bad that you're willing to sacrifice anything for it. Number two is you've got to take action. You've got to act when you're intuitively guided, not just when it's convenient, but when you are intuitively guided, you've got to act. When you're intuitively guided to ask that question that feels uncomfortable, you've got to ask. When you're intuitively guided to ask that question about money and you're uncomfortable to ask that question, you got to ask. The question you ask yourself is, if I act on this idea, will it move me in the direction of my dream? If the answer is yes, you got to go. Step number 3 is, you've got to find your yes. The world is programmed, especially in our world as sales professionals. The outside world is programmed to tell you no and maybe. Your job is to keep moving until you find the yes. Because I'm telling you, someone is looking for what you offer. Right now, somebody is in need for what you offer. How do I know that? Well, the law of compensation is very clear. The amount of money that you make, that I make, that your industry makes is in direct proportion for the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. You wouldn't have an offer if there wasn't a need. You wouldn't be selling whatever it is you're selling, product or service. You wouldn't be selling it if there wasn't a need. So somebody is out there right now and they're looking for what you have to offer. And your job is to keep moving until you find your yes. You've got to find your yes people. You've got to find your yes conditions. You've got to find the yes circumstances. See, rejection isn't personal. It's directional. And truly, every no really does get you closer to an aligned yes. And that's not about a numbers game. It's about a qualifying game. And you are so passionate about selling what you have to offer, about finding those people who need what you have, that you will talk to anybody. You will ask for referrals. You will tell people what to listen for. Hey, when you're out and about, if you hear anybody who says that, they just fired their cleaning company or that they need to get their carpets cleaned, think of me. Would you do me a favor and just either, mention my name or let me know who they are? I was relentless in finding business. Relentless in it. And you have to be too. See, persistence. He talks about persistence. He dedicates an entire chapter on the principle of persistence. He said that persistence is to the character of man as what carbon is to steel. Persistence isn't just about pushing harder. It's about staying emotionally grounded long enough to locate the opening. Persistence isn't about, just doing it determined. It's about controlling yourself and having absolute certainty that what you have is the very best in the market and that you're the very best person to bring it to them. And that you have such a strong desire to serve and to bring value that you're willing to face any rejection. It doesn't matter. You don't take it personally. See, you cannot lead people in a conversation, in the buying process, if you're afraid of hearing no. See, you find your yes when you decide that the no doesn't define you. That when they say no, that doesn't mean that, you're not any good or the market's bad or... See, I started my first business in 1988. I am so happy that I was uneducated because I didn't realize that it was the height of a recession. People were closing offices. People were losing their houses. And I was out in the marketplace trying to sell office cleaning services and, residential carpet cleaning services. Nobody had time for that. Nobody had the money for that. People were losing their leases, and I was going in and trying to sell cleaning services. I didn't have enough knowledge to know that I should have failed. Ignorance truly was bliss for me. And so for me, I just thought, well, I just got to work harder. I'm not knocking on enough doors. I was so in love with the idea of building a successful business and getting rich because that's, I was 22 years old. I had car problems, I had rent problems, I had girlfriend problems. My whole life was problems. And I truly believe if I could just get enough money, I could start solving my problems. They say, Money can't buy you happiness, but everybody wants to find out for themselves, trust me. And I will tell you, money may not be able to buy happiness, true happiness, but it could set the conditions for you to be happy. I've been rich and I've been poor. And I'll take rich over poor any day of the week. So number one, you've got to have a desire. You've got to have something worth failing for, something facing the rejection. You've got to fall in love with what it is. It's got to be an all-consuming obsession. Number two, you've got to act. You've got to act. When you are intuitively guided, you got to take the action. Number three is you've got to find your yes. You got to find the yes people. You got to find the yes market. You got to find the yes distributors. You got to find your yeses. The world's programmed to say no and maybe. Average people, salespeople fall for that, not sales pros. And last is, you've got to be committed to yourself. You've got to have a level of self-discipline. See, you can't enroll others in your vision if you're only kind of casually committed to your vision yourself. Buyers don't follow logic. They're following energy. And your energy will never exceed your level of obsession, this level of falling in love with it. If you're not sold on your offer, if you don't buy you first, then nobody else will buy you. You have to buy into your mission. You have to buy into your identity. If you don't, again, your prospect won't either. Sales, again, at its highest level, is about transference. It's about an energy transfer. And what transfers most powerfully is not product knowledge. It's not features and benefits. It's passion. It's passion that's lived. It's passion that's spoken. Step number 5 is you have to be willing to pay the price. You've got to be willing to pay the price. See, every sale that you want on the outside requires a version of you on the inside. For every outcome, for every positive result that you want in the marketplace, it requires a version of you on the inside who's paid the price for what you want in advance. You don't get to 6 figures or 7 figures by luck. You don't get to 6 or 7 figures of income by just, having been positioned in the right market. See, you will never outperform your willingness to be uncomfortable. You'll never be able to close beyond what you've been able to close inside, to close in on your belief, to shut down your doubt, to quiet the little voices of self-judgment that says, you're not good enough, or you'll never measure up, or you've never done this before, you're not ready. See, the people who win, sales pros, you're going to find that they're not necessarily the smartest in the group. They may not have all the technical knowledge, but I will tell you this. They're the ones who stop bargaining with the price that they have to pay. Oftentimes when I'm talking to somebody and I meet them at a business meeting or a chamber of commerce or a conference, and they find out, who I am and what I do, and they'll tell me, geez, man, I really wish I could improve my sales. What's it cost to go through your program? I kind of look at them and say, you're probably not ready yet. Well, no, no, how much does it cost? No, you're probably not ready. Or they'll say, well, how long does it take for me to kind of learn all those, all the sales tricks? And program's not for you. See, if you're already negotiating with how much you're going to pay, and if you're already negotiating with how much time you're going to invest, you're not going to make it. I can't give you enough. I can't give you if it was about you getting the information and understanding the information and reading, remember, and repeating, anybody can do that. But people don't buy that. You could say all the right words, with all the right tonalities, with all the right strategy. But if you don't have the passion for it, if you don't have the self-belief, you won't get it across the finish line. People can spot a phony a mile away. See, if you won't pay the price in time, in energy, in reps, right? In reps, like smiling and dialing, walking and talking, going to the meeting, shaking hands, right? If you won't pay the price in growth, I can tell you this: the marketplace will never pay you. Will never pay you what you think it should pay you. It's never going to allow you to earn 6 or 7 figures. It's just the way the game works. It's just the way the game of life works. If you think that you're going to watch a couple of videos, try a couple of tactics here or there, take a little bit of this and take a little bit of that and kind of wing it and play the game a little bit, you will never earn sustained wealth. You'll never have go from $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, let alone $1 million. Let's look at step number 6. Number 6 is you already have a belief system. See, I'm not suggesting that you don't have beliefs. I'm suggesting that you have beliefs that are holding you back. Your prospect is not your biggest source of objections. Your biggest source of objection is this little voice inside your head. It's our own inner voice of judgment. In his book, True Believers, Eric Hoffer said this. He said that most people fail in life. Regardless of all the successes, most people fail in life because they have inside themselves a person who stands and holds court, a person who keeps a book of their shortcomings and their transgressions. In other words, regardless of any success you've had in the past, we think well of ourselves only in rare moments. We think good of ourselves. We see ourselves as winners and producers and people who can earn the true wealth that we want to earn. We think of ourselves that way only in rare moments. That all the other times we have this inner judge that keeps a book of our shortcomings and our transgressions. And what we need is we need a community. We need other people. We need mentors who see in us what we cannot see, who can believe in us what we cannot believe for ourselves, and who can help us and remind us that we're not as bad as we think we are. Most objections that hold you back are not objections from the prospect. See, you can talk yourself out of a deal much quicker than any prospect ever could. Most sales are not lost because the salesperson silently agrees with the buyer's doubt. Most sales are lost because they believe in their own self-doubt. See, until you start to challenge the belief inside you that says, I'm not good enough, I'll never be able to do that, or nobody in this industry. I used to say that to my first mentor, Patrick Hayes, who gave me this book and who mentored me to my first 10 million. Patrick mentored me. I used to say, Patrick, you just can't get rich in the cleaning company. You can't get rich in the cleaning industry. Boy, was I wrong. See, until you challenge your old beliefs, you'll keep attracting prospects who confirm it for you. We don't get what we want. We get who we are. And the hardest part of sales isn't learning how to overcome objections. It's learning how to overcome our own inner voice of doubt and self-judgment. When I'm training salespeople, I always tell them, look, this is a you and you deal. It's a you and you deal. Remember that sales is the transference of certainty. Well, the only person or the only place the prospect can find certainty is in you. And if you doubt yourself, if you don't have certainty in who you are, in your right to be rich, and in your skill to be rich, and in your abilities to perform to be rich, you don't get it. That's just the way it is. Let's look at step number 7. And this is a hard one because we've been told that, we should really know what we're doing. We should really wait until we've got everything lined up. I have found that we have to take the first step without knowing all the other steps. That if you need to know the entire plan, if you need to know all that's going to happen before you make a move, before you pick up the phone, before you walk out the door, you're never going to build the momentum you need in your sales career. If you wait for the market to be right, for the timing to be right, for everything, for all the conditions and circumstances to be right in order for you to make your move, you'll never get momentum. And momentum is a salesperson's best friend. Confidence isn't required at the beginning in order to get started. Instead, confidence is actually created through movement and action. I was teaching my 6-year-old son, Emerson, how to ride a bike. He had no belief in the beginning. The only belief he had was in his belief in me that I wasn't going to let him get hurt. But he didn't believe that he could ever ride the bike or that he would be able to do it. And I was telling him, look, Emerson, in an hour, you're going to be riding this. We're going to call your mom out. You're going to be pedaling with no hands on the... No way. He had zero belief in himself. He believed in me. He believed that I could get him there. He believed that I wouldn't let him get hurt, but he had zero belief in himself. He didn't need belief to get started. He didn't have to have the confidence to get started. He didn't have to have all the skills and talents and ability to get started. All that came through the movement and momentum of him taking action, of him getting started. Even though he was failing, we all understand intellectually. We all understand it intellectually. That what's necessary in order for us to get it right is we've got to get it wrong enough times. And we've got to get all the lessons necessary from getting it wrong in order to get it right. Some of our greatest inventions, penicillin was a mistake. I'm going to suggest that you'll find that almost every single advancement, meaningful advancement in mankind, came as a result of somebody else making a mistake. And that mistake being looked at by somebody on fire for results. Somebody who was passionate, who said, let's go. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. I don't know when, but I do believe there will be footprints on Mars. That I'm sure of. And I know that what's going to be required is dead astronauts. I don't know how many are going to have to die before we put footprints on Mars. But here's what I know, is there will be dead astronauts. And then there will be footprints on Mars. And what's really interesting is after we have astronauts die in the process of going to Mars, the next group of astronauts will sign up the very next day. I was in Jacksonville, Florida when the Challenger exploded. And many people thought that that was the end. Never again would there be a shuttle. Boy, were they wrong. Within days, the new team was picked. Why? Because those astronauts were so in love with the idea of being able to go into flight, so in love with the idea of pioneering into space flight, that they were willing to go to life and put all the chips in the center of the table and go after their dream. You're not going to have the confidence when you start. It's going to come from you doing the thing. Emerson said, do the thing, and then you get the energy to do the thing. Action creates clarity, and most people are stuck because they're still trying to figure it all out before they ever start. And you're never going to have all the answers. You're going to have to know what's your next step. You won't close deals by understanding every single step. You'll close it by having the courage to take the first step. Now, in my program, we've taken a lot of the guesswork out of it. We've given you an 11-step process. We've given you all the commitment objectives. We've given you all the tactics. We've shown you all the strategy. We've outlined it all. But at the end of the day, it's a you and you deal. You're going to have to find your way. You're going to have to find your way through our way. You're going to have to find your own identity, what works for you. And step number 8 leads right into that, and that's the law of sacrifice. See, you cannot become the next version of yourself while you're clinging on to the comforts of the old one, by your old habits. You can't take your old habits into your new life. You can't take your old beliefs into this new life that you want to create. If you're in sales, true sales, that means you're commission only. You're not letting somebody else determine your value. You're playing a different game. You're so confident in yourself, you're saying, look, I don't need a guaranteed paycheck, and quite frankly, I don't want one, because you'll never pay me what I'm worth. See, that's the truth. Commission sales is the only place where there is no limit to the amount of money you make. You can make as much as you want. There's no cap. Nobody else determines your value but you if you're in sales. But I'm going to suggest that if you want to be and do and have more, you're not going to be able to be and do and have more dragging your old self with you. See, the law of sacrifice, it's not about giving things up. It's about letting go of things of a lesser value in exchange for something of a greater value. It's not about giving up. It's about going up. It's about growing up. It's about letting go of things. You'll find that some of the wasted time isn't worth it. You'll find that some of the habits you have aren't worth holding on to. And you'll let them go. If you think about it, think about the last time you've made a big change in your life. Like a big change. And if you look back, you'll notice that some of the people you were hanging around with before the change didn't make the journey. Some of the things that you thought were funny, like years ago, there were things that I used to laugh at I don't find funny anymore. There were people in my life that I used to hang around with, they were downers. They don't hang around me. I don't hang around them. It's not that we had some falling out. There was no big argument. It's just that, you know what? We wanted different things and we went in different directions. They weren't willing to make the trip. See, top performers don't fear the cost. They don't fear the price that they've got to pay. They recognize that any cost is an investment. It's a required investment into their new identity, into their new belief system. And in sales, if you're unwilling to let go of things that don't serve you, if you're unwilling to let go of your own ideas, some of your own beliefs. See, like some of the beliefs I have now, I didn't believe when I was in poverty. See, I've got prosperity beliefs that are no longer a match for what my poverty belief system was. See, I used to believe that the only reason why people were rich is because they didn't pay their fair shares or because they took advantage of other people. And then I realized when I got out into the marketplace that some of the people in my family, uncles and cousins and other people, neighbors, I look at them and I realize, you know what, they're not hustling. They're not doing it. They're not working on Saturdays. They're not working at nighttime. They don't have real goals. You know, they got the 40-40 plan. They're going to work 40 hours for 40 years and hope they can, tiptoe safely to death. They never took a risk. They never signed up for anything additional. Well, they're not paying me for that. That's not my job. See, if we're really honest, when we look at some of the people in our lives who aren't making it, who aren't really climbing the ladder of success and achievement, we're looking and say, well, you know what? They don't deserve it. They're not taking the risks. They're not sleeping on the office carpet floor at night. They're not going the extra mile. They're not putting in the work when they're not getting paid. Step number 9 is it's about our patterns. See, repetition reprograms our reality. Repetition is the mother of skill because it's not what you occasionally say or what you occasionally do. Well, sometimes I ask people for referrals. Asking for referrals isn't a sometime activity. It's an every time activity. Sometimes I follow up. Follow up isn't a sometimes activity. It's an every occurrence activity. Repetition reprograms reality. It's what you consistently rehearse. It's what you consistently do. See, the way you speak to yourself before and after your sales calls sets the tone for your pattern of belief, your pattern of behavior. It drives your physiology. Every time you practice, what you're doing is you're building confidence. You're building belief, even when it's uncomfortable. Every time you're asking to go from, fairly uninvasive questions to invasive questions. See, salespeople don't want to ask invasive questions because they know they risk the person not liking them. Sales pros know they want to ask the invasive questions because it's not about whether the person likes them. It's about whether the person respects them as an authority. And sometimes people in authority, sometimes experts have to ask you questions that make you uncomfortable. And sales pros are willing to do that. Salespeople, not so much. What's the difference? A 0 and a comma. That's the difference. Every time you practice, you build confidence. You strengthen this new identity. And what happens is the old pattern begins to kind of give way. Now, look, it will try to pull you back. Those old habits are hard to break. But every single time you take a rep, every single time you move forward in alignment with what you truly want, with your true heart's desire, you build a deeper groove of truth. Truly, you build a truly new neural network. See, it's not just the belief system. Your physical brain changes. The structure of your physical brain changes. You build a complete different neural network for your belief system to fire on, and the old pathway dies. It's kind of like when you're driving in Florida and you're driving all the way down south to the most southern point of the United States, down to Key West. And there's a certain point as you get there, the old bridge is there, and now the new bridge takes over. And the old bridge is now just a fishing pier. Never went away, but now all of a sudden, all the new traffic is on the new bridge. All the traffic's on the new bridge. And that's what happens. Our old pattern, we stop running the old belief system. And a new neural network is built. Now, it takes time for that. It takes time for your brain to literally rewire itself and to build these deep grooves of truth for that belief to run on. But it will do it. The last one, and most important, is you've got to celebrate the shift. You've got to celebrate your own successes. Very few people will cheer you on when you're winning. Every internal win deserves external recognition, because what you celebrate, you integrate into your belief system. What you acknowledge, what you cheer on, what you encourage, you will begin to reproduce every single time. So don't wait for the big payday, or don't wait for the perfect month to validate who you are, to validate your growth. Validate it now through what I call conscious celebration. Take the win. Confidence begins to compound. And as you begin to track your progress, you'll begin to see your growth. And what's beautiful is you will see that your failures have led to successes. You'll see that you went down, and then all of a sudden there was a change. And then you learned again, you went down a little bit, and then you took the next risk to learn something new. And before you know it, it looks like this. It's what Earl Nightingale defined success. He said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. What's a worthy ideal? It's an idea that you fall in love with. And the fastest way to create momentum in sales is to acknowledge the version of you that's already rising up, that's already winning. Now look, if you haven't downloaded the Belief Upgrade Guide yet, now's the time to do it. Hit pause right now. I've just walked you through the 10 shifts that rebuild belief from the inside out, but knowing them isn't the same as integrating them. That's what the guide will help you do. 10 minutes. That's it. 10 minutes, 10 reflections, one internal reset. It's a gift from me to you. It's everything that I've learned from this book. I've read this book thousands of times. I teach it publicly every single year. I've taught it to over 100,000 people. Go and grab this guide, because the faster you align your identity, the faster you close in with power and presence and certainty. The link is in the description, and I want you to hit pause and download it, and then come right back, because we're just getting started. In the very next video, I'm going to share the exact moment my sales results transformed forever. It's what I called I Got Rich When I Understood This. That's the name of the video. I got rich when I understood this. And it's not about money. It's about how I finally understood the truth about value, about alignment, and about self-identity. Why I stopped chasing clients and I started actually attracting the people I wanted to work with. And how wealth, I mean real wealth, started the moment I shifted from how I saw myself to how I started to perform. So this next piece will land deeper now that you've done the belief work. So go ahead, click through I Got Rich When I Understood This, and I'll meet you there on the other side.